Every time a new Star Wars game gets announced, the same conversation pops up: expectations, hype, and whether it'll actually feel like Star Wars. And somehow, almost 20 years later, a game from 2005 still gets brought up in that conversation. Not because it was perfect, but because it nailed the feeling that a lot of modern games still chase after. Battlefront 2 came out right in the middle of the prequel era. Revenge of the Sith had just released, Clone Wars content was everywhere, and Star Wars felt huge again. But timing alone doesn't make a game legendary. A lot of Star Wars games came out around that time. Most of them were fine, but some were forgettable. This one really stuck. The reason it stuck is because it understood something really important: the feeling of being in Star Wars. It didn't give us a stupid character to play as like Iden Versio or Kay Vess from the new Outlaws game. Those games were absolutely terrible. They gave us a side story that nobody really cared about. And one of the smartest things this game did was make you feel like just another soldier. You didn't start as a Jedi, and you didn't start with plot armor. You were a clone, a droid, or a stormtrooper, totally expendable. And somehow, that made everything just feel bigger. The ground combat was perfectly simple. It didn't need to be complicated. Each faction had four main classes, and every one of them had a clear role. Assault units pushed objectives, heavy troopers controlled vehicles, engineers kept things alive longer than they should have been. Snipers punished you for standing still. Nothing about it was overly technical, but it flowed. The command posts really mattered, and if you lost ground, you really felt it. Reinforcements drained super fast, and matches could swing hard if one team got lazy. And let's not forget about the legendary vehicles. This was a game changer. You didn't just use them, you fought around them. AT-ATs felt absolutely massive, and the AT-STs were terrifying when they showed up. Speeders were annoyingly chaotic in the best way possible, though. It wasn't balanced and it was not fair, but it felt so cool. And speaking of vehicles, space battles. They weren't just dogfights, they were full-scale assaults. You'd start outside the capital ships, flying through chaos, dodging lasers, picking targets, then you could actually land inside the enemy ships and take it down from the inside. That still feels crazy to say because you don't see that stuff anymore. You could literally blow up the inside of their systems, fight through hallways and take out reactors, and then escape before the ship exploded. It wasn't a cutscene, it was all gameplay. Galactic Conquest. Another big reason this game stayed relevant for so long. It wasn't just a pick a map and shoot stuff. It added strategy on top of the action. You moved fleets across the galaxy, you chose which planets to attack. Certain planets gave bonuses that actually mattered, and losing battles had consequences. This game mode really made you feel like you were actually fighting a war and not just loading into matches. The best part, you could play it offline, at your own pace, forever. Heroes and villains were powerful, but you had to earn them. You didn't just spawn in as Vader every match. You had to rack up battle points first. And when you finally unlocked a hero, it felt like a moment. But even then, you weren't invincible. You could absolutely dominate, but you could also get overwhelmed, surrounded, and taken out if you weren't careful. Heroes felt strong without completely breaking the game, which is something modern games really still struggle with. The campaign deserves its own credit. Instead of following Jedi or big name characters, it followed the 501st Legion, regular clone troopers. The narration alone gives you chills. It hits. It's calm, it's detached, and it's unsettling. You're hearing the story from the perspective of soldiers who believe they're doing the right thing, even when history says otherwise. For a Star Wars game in 2005, that was surprisingly mature. Going back to Battlefront 2 now, yeah, you'll notice the rough edges. The AI does weird things, the shooting isn't precise, and some mechanics are straight up broken. But none of that really matters, because the game knew what it was trying to be. It wasn't chasing trends, and it wasn't built around competition or monetization. It was built around fun, scale, and letting players live out Star Wars moments however they wanted. That's why Battlefront 2 from 2005 still gets brought up every time a new Star Wars game is announced. It set a standard, not for graphics or realism, but for feel. It understood the universe, it respected the source material, and it trusted players to make their own moments instead of forcing scripted ones. That's why people still play it, mod it, and that's why it's still the benchmark for Star Wars shooters.